Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, or our YouTube channel, sorry, um, where we talk about all things pop culture, whether it's good or bad, definitely if it's geeky. I'm your host, Daniel. This is my beautiful co-host.
Shelby Lynn.
Today, we're going to be talking about The Incredible Hulk, our second part in our,
Road to Endgame.
yes, our little series that we're kickstarted on this channel with, and we are already off to a bad start. We were supposed to have this up last week.
Part of it is my fault though. I'm in college. I'm a special education major and classes started this week. We've also been both working a whole bunch and trying to work and get ready for classes has kind of driven me a little bit insane. So I apologize for that. Daniel just goes with the flow for the most part.
I mean, there's that, and we opted to watch Mary Poppins instead of Infinity War, so.
Yeah, Mary Poppins is great though. If you haven't checked it out, you absolutely should. That being said, with the fact that we did get a little bit behind on our road to Endgame, we are going to be doing 2 videos this week. It's going to be this one and
Thor.
Ragnarok, right?
No, just the first Thor.
Just the regular Thor, the beginning one. We are going to skip around a little bit. Originally, we were supposed to do Iron Man 2 going chronologically in terms of releases, but we're skipping Iron Man 2 for the moment, and we're going to come back and do it later.
So, like I said, this is our series for the road to Endgame. We're going to go over all of the MCU films until the big release. So today we're talking about The Incredible Hulk, originally released in 2008, directed by Louis Leterrir. I have no idea how to pronounce
If
that.
you know how to say it, put the phonetic spelling of it down below.
Por favor. That'd be great. It stars Edward Norton, Liv Tyler, and Tim Roth.
So, first of all, huge applause to Edward Norton. Very sad that they switched him out later on. Also, it just gets all continuity weird to me, having Edward Norton be in this movie and not in the later ones. What's the new Hulk's actual name? Mark what?
Ruffalo. It's like
Ruffalo.
Buffalo, but with an R instead of a B.
To me, it makes it feel like this movie is not connected to the current MCU as much as they meant for it to be. But big applause to Edward Norton on this one. I absolutely love him as Hulk.
And really quick before we keep going, I don't know how much you could hear it, but our cat is just running amok right now. She gets into these moments where she just has to absolutely run around the house for like 10, 15 minutes, and then she'll be asleep for like an hour or two.
Especially when we're cleaning, which makes it really difficult to clean.
Which is what we were doing before we started this. So, yeah, hopefully she calms down soon and won't be too much of a big distraction. Our cat's name is Ripley, by the way. But yeah, so let's start this off. I actually really liked the opening credits recap. I know you didn't know this beforehand, but there was a other Hulk film that came out about 5 years prior. And it was still in the pop culture conscious at the time. Hulk was probably the most popular MCU character before, the MCU swung into high gear.
Yeah, which is what they were still working on doing with this movie.
Yeah, so, they basically just recapped that previous film and just put in their actors into that plot in the recap. So I thought that was really interesting. I actually kind of like when films do that, like kind of just gloss over the origin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did it in Dawn of Justice with Batman. They did his whole origin story in the opening credits. They do it in Homecoming. They don't even talk about his origin story at all.
The other thing that I liked about the opening was the fact that later on we do see flashbacks through Edward Norton to what has happened previously through Bruce Banner. And that opening credit recap definitely felt very much so along the same lines as the flashbacks, which kind of made it feel like it was kind of a third theme.
Yeah.
Which was very nice.
Yes, it was. It all felt natural, which is sometimes a little hard to do with flashbacks, especially if you're going to throw in a flashback and a flash forward. Dawn of Justice. All right, so what was your...
So my opening comment was that I love the Days Without Incident counter. It's very artfully done, and it definitely feels like if I had to name that text that they put on that screen, I would probably call it the Hulk text from now on, simply because it just felt like it fit. And, when you put words on a screen in a movie, you definitely need to not only worry about, what are the words you're putting on there, but also the look of those words and where you put them within the scenes. And they moved it around a little bit throughout the film, but they kept with that same text and that same Days Without Incident, 32, whatever thing. And it definitely made it feel like it was supposed to be there and like it was pretty natural as well.
So anything else about the opening sequence that you want to talk about?
So in the opening sequence, just, spoilers, you've probably seen this movie. If you haven't, go watch it, please. Don't watch Endgame without going through the road to Endgame films. You need to know what's happening. It's like reading the 7th Harry Potter book without reading any of the ones before it. Don't do it. It's not right. Sorry, little plug there. So in the opening, you do see Edward Norton as Bruce Banner trying to just live as regular of a life, as natural of a life as he can, while still, worrying about the fact that he has Hulk inside of him. As we find out, he ends up moving around a lot because of Hulk, pretty much. And it's kind of implied that he's learned the various languages that he knows through the kids' shows. We see him trying to learn Portuguese through Sesame Street. And realistically, that's a great way to do it, especially if you're trying to do it in an immersive environment like he obviously is. Almost no one around him speaks English, so it's not like he can have somebody sit there and tutor him easily. That being said, immersive environments are the best way to learn a language, but you need to know the basics.
Yeah.
And watching kids' TV shows helps you learn the basics, especially Sesame Street. I mean, they're talking about the letter P and the number 10 and all that. That's what Sesame Street's about, is teaching your kids the basics of the language. So, I mean, that's a great way to do that realistically.
The only other, first couple minutes comment I have is that there is it's at least nationwide, I want to say it's global, but there's a relatively well-known martial arts training facility. I don't know if it's called a dojo or not, called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, and while the founder of it, Rickson Gracie, Rickson Gracie is his martial arts instructor. He's the one who's teaching him how to control his breathing and his heart rate and all that stuff. I just thought that was really cool.
So piggybacking off of that, does the trainer know that he has the Hulk inside of him? I mean, obviously this guy is wanting to learn martial arts to some extent. That's kind of implied. But, I mean, he's also training him to control his heart rate and all of that. And my question there goes into, if his heart rate hits that specific level, he's going to Hulk out. Does his trainer know that? That's definitely something you should disclose before doing that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of more, I think it kind of just goes into the, hey, I have gamma poisoning, and if my heart rate goes above this, bad things start to happen. I need to control that. Because I feel like that's also what he tells the scientist.
Yeah.
That's working.
Yeah, he did. The scientist definitely didn't know that he became Hulk.
Right.
The other thing about that is that Bruce Banner in these movies goes to great lengths to control his heart rate to make sure he doesn't just Hulk out unexpectedly. And that's one thing that we lose later in the MCU when we see Hulk, which I definitely feel like if they had maintained at least that, it would have given it a much better continuity feel.
Well, in all fairness, the ending of this film combined with a line in the Avengers kind of shows that he fully controls Hulk. So, little preamble. This movie came out before they had the finalized script of the Avengers. And at that time, they weren't sure. It was planned to have Hulk be the villain. Yeah. Or at least one of the villains.
Yeah, we see like 4 throughout the MCU. So.
And so that last shot with him starting to Hulk out, but also kind of like smiling at it.
Yeah, he has the Hulk eyes with the regular person face.
Right. So it's kind of left up in the air as to whether that's him controlling it or hulking out to be the villain. And then the line in the Avengers that it's, has become a meme and everyone knows is, hey, that's my secret cap. I'm always angry. Does go to confirm that he is able to control the Hulk at that point.
Yeah,
So,
but I just feel like, I mean, if they had stuck a heart rate monitor on the new Hulk, it would have been a much more. That one little thing would have made it feel a lot more in continuity with the whole thing. That's just my personal opinion. We did talk about this quite a bit when we were actually watching the movie. I just don't feel like it fits very well into the current continuity and all of that.
yeah, and I honestly don't know what Marvel is thinking as
Mhm.
far as how to deal with the Hulk, because they obviously like the Hulk. They put him in half of Thor Ragnarok. They use him as like main plot elements in Age of Ultron and in the first Avengers. Um, I mean, they kind of bench him in Infinity War, but they kind
But
of,
at the same time, Hulk in himself is used for a lot of plot points in Infinity War.
yeah,
I mean, I really don't know what they're doing with him, and it's very confusing.
yeah. So they show that they obviously enjoy the character and like utilize him, but they don't want to make a Hulk film.
They could have
Because
very easily killed him off several movies ago if they wanted to. Really
yeah,
and truly.
but they don't make a Hulk film because they don't own the distribution rights. Universal owns the distribution rights for Hulk, and I just think it's kind of weird that they were willing to play ball with Sony and Spider-Man, but not Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. The other thing is on that in the future movies, we do of course see Hulk. But it also becomes like Banner and Hulk are two different personalities, which I mean that's kind of seen a little bit simply in the fact that Hulk is a lot more easily angered. He has a lot shorter of a fuse, which we do see in this movie. I mean, it thunders and he yells at the sky.
he also doesn't seem to have much intellect.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of implied, but at the same time, it definitely, in this movie, didn't feel as if it was two drastically different personalities, which is something that we definitely saw in Infinity War. It's almost like Banner and Hulk are at war with each other in Infinity War.
Well, Hulk was inspired off of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Of course.
I mean, in his original Italians, or like way back towards first few stories, it's read as a horror film, as horror stories. No, it's read as this mild-mannered scientist who transforms into this monster, and it is supposed to harken to that. It is supposed to feel as it's two different identities.
But, I mean, in this movie, it definitely didn't feel quite so split as it does in Infinity War. Yeah. So anyway, moving forward, we've talked about how we know that he's working on controlling his anger and his heart rate and all of that, and the problems that then go in with that. We do get a very nice Stan Lee cameo in this one, and honestly, it might be my favorite Stan Lee cameo that we've seen. Rest in peace, Stan Lee, of course. We definitely kind of picked this whole YouTube channel stuff up after he passed away, as I'm sure you're aware if you're watching this. Stan Lee was a great guy. And I mean, we're only going to get so many more cameos, unfortunately. But that being said, we do know that they do kind of have a reserve of Stan Lee cameos, simply so that they can continue to put Stan Lee in future movies as they come. Because I mean, nobody can live forever. We aren't at that point in technology.
I mean, he was like 95, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he had a good run.
And just a really random side note, Once Upon a Deadpool has instead of an end credit scene, they do a small little tribute to Stan Lee. Oh my god, that's like almost worth the price of the movie itself. Just that tribute. Because I tried finding it online and I couldn't.
It is a very beautiful tribute, and it made Daniel cry, and it definitely gave me chills and tears in my eyes. And I mean, it was beautiful. It really was. Like you said, almost worth the whole new movie. Unfortunately, they didn't change a lot in Deadpool, but we're not talking about that. Yeah, we're not talking about Deadpool. Let's get back to like I said, this may have been my favorite Stan Lee cameo simply because it's goofy. It's kind of like not super in your face. Like if you don't know who Stan Lee is, you're going to have no idea that that's what just happened there. I definitely didn't originally. I've seen this movie twice. The first time I was like, oh, hey, that's Stan Lee, but I'd only seen him in like 3 other things before. So I was starting to get on the ball about it back then. moving forward, after Stanley drinks the soda, it kind of sparks all the other stuff that's going to happen throughout the rest of the movie. One of the next big things that we see is the military coming to pick up Hulk. It's very much implied that they don't want him dead. It's not a dead or alive situation. It's a very much so we need him alive, and don't hurt him.
I mean, they go after him with tranquilizers, so.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Going forward in that chase scene was beautiful through that village.
Yeah.
It really was. It was a very well shot thing.
It was really well shot, well choreographed. Kudos to everyone who had to work together to bring that out. The stuntmen, the cameraman, the DP, the choreographers, the director, the storyboarders, the extras. But yeah, it all felt organic and it all felt suspenseful, and there wasn't a minute of confusion.
The other really nice thing is we get our first glimpse of Hulk at the end of this chase scene, and it is so beautifully done. We get a shot of Blonsky and his character, and then we get a shot of the first sight of Hulk, and what you really see in that first sight is like from his upper lip to his forehead and his eyes. His brilliantly green eyes, and I just absolutely adored that shot. And the fact that Blonsky was, kind of the preface, which kind of then, of course, is a nod, wink, wink, foreshadowing towards the end of the movie.
And just like with Iron Man, when he woke up in the cave, when the Hulk first comes out and it harkens back to his foundations, it does have a horror vibe to it, because he is in the shadows, and he is, all of a sudden these special ops guys are just freaking out because there's this giant thing chasing them and hurting them, and it's so well shot.
The other thing is we get like a good 2 or 3 minutes before we actually really see the Hulk, and that definitely contributes to that, because we see
his arm,
we see an arm, we see people getting thrown across a room, we see vehicles getting thrown across this room and that kind of thing. And then when we do finally see the Hulk, it starts at his foot as he's stepping on a shit ton of tranquilizers. And then we get to see the full Hulk and the bullets actually ricocheting off of him, which very beautifully done. Very, very beautifully done.
Yeah, they kind of, it doesn't, it's not that they ricochet, they hit him and they kind of like ripple throughout his skin. And it
actually creates like an indent, like when I poke myself, and then a little bit of a ripple, and then they just fall. And I mean, that was just so beautifully, beautifully done. Applause to them for actually taking the time to do that as well.
So the rest of our notes is really just a bunch of questions and comments we came up with the characters and the story. Why don't you go ahead and start us off, because mine are kind of,
So we have to back up just a tad for my first big character comment, because it goes back to when we first see Blonsky and General Ross together. Very much so, you get the vibe from the get-go that General Ross just does not care about these men. He's sending them in to get the job done, and he doesn't care if they live or they die. And I mean, that's very much so easily said in the fact that he doesn't tell them what they're going up against.
Right.
And a lot of those guys do die. And then also with that, General Ross's blatant not caring for his people and his men is beautifully, beautifully paired with Blonsky's blind trust. And later on, as the story continues, of course, we see Blonsky to start to desire that strength and that power that Hulk has. And that very much so is a beautifully done thing by him and his actor. That just was so well played and well picked on that actor.
I actually really enjoyed Tim Roth as an actor.
Tim Roth, thank you.
You're welcome.
I can never remember actors' names, so if I just omit names, that's why. And then we do, of course, see Blonsky craving that power, and when we first see the little thing where Blonsky says, "Is that all you got?" and Hulk kicks him. Of course, that's again played back later on.
Yeah. So really quick, Blonsky does end up getting injected with a super soldier serum. So the whole origin that they give for the Hulk is that he was working on the super soldier serum, but he was told that it was for radiation protection. So he injected it himself, and he tested on himself
because he believed in it.
And all of a sudden, he became Hulk.
Mhm.
So they do have a vial of super soldier serum,
More along the lines of Captain America.
which, yeah, that's where my first question comes in is, do they just have the one vial? Because he does say, oh yeah, we have this one serum that ended up working. I'm like, okay, one
Well-
serum doesn't mean one vial of it. One serum means you have the formula and everything.
Yeah, the recipe.
And if that's the case, why aren't there more super soldiers?
Yeah. So also, it's kind of implied that the same serum that's injected into Blonsky is along the same lines as the same serum that Captain America ends up getting. However, there's obviously very different, very adverse effects for Blonsky, even before he becomes Hulk and gets...
Not at first.
Not at first, no.
No,
but
at first he does get this, he does get the Captain America powers. He gets very strong and
But
fast.
as the story progresses and before he gets the Hulk serum, he ends up being, he looks almost pale and sick and like he's sweating all the time. So it does end up having adverse effects for Blonsky, which kind of makes me think that perhaps the reason why we don't have more super soldiers is because you need that ideal specimen to begin with, and they hadn't found enough of them to be able to create a bunch of super soldiers. Which, I mean, that's kind of implied in Captain America as well.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
So, I mean, that's kind of an explanation. Of course, not a for sure explanation, but a possible one.
My like really only complaint with this film is that Tim Roth and Liv Tyler did not have, I mean not Tim Roth, I'm sorry, Edward Norton and Liv Tyler have no chemistry together. I read a lot of stuff about how, they talked a lot on set to try to give backgrounds to these characters so that they could act naturally in front of each other. Like, it doesn't work though. It does not work.
I actually wrote down this weird little side note that Bruce Banner is obviously still in love with her. Weird question though in there. What is her freaking name? We hear her called Betty and Elizabeth.
We actually don't hear her called it.
But
Elizabeth.
We see Elizabeth on her nameplate. And
every time we see her name, it's Elizabeth, but every time she's called, it's Betty.
So my question, of course, they could be Elizabeth is her legal name, Betty's a nickname, but there is no way to get Betty from Elizabeth. Logically. It's possible it's a middle name, but I just wish they gave a little bit more explanation in that. They could have easily done it in just putting on the newspaper Elizabeth Betty Ross.
Yeah.
That would have been a super easy way to explain that away. But they didn't. So what is her name? Did she legally change her name somewhere in there? I mean, I don't know. It's confusing.
I don't care for it either.
But Bruce is obviously still in love with her. Either way, no matter how you want to look at it, Bruce is still in love with her. She definitely doesn't have good chemistry with Edward Norton to create the feeling that she's still in love with him, but he is a good enough actor that he's able to pull off that idea that he's still in love with her anyway. I kind of got the idea that maybe she's more still in lust with him. She's still intrigued by him. She's not in love with him, which very, very different things, of course. Also, I really like Blonsky's bluntness with Ross.
Yeah.
General Ross, after, that first big fight, he kind of goes to General Ross and he's like, what just happened? And he does make a really neat comment that I very much enjoyed, that if you keep sending people like me, the team you sent in, again and again, you're going to have some super strong, super tough guys just pissing their pants. Yeah. And I kind of love that comment because, I mean, it's true. That's not something you see every day. That's not something you expect to see ever. So, I mean, it's very true, and it's very kind of a comical moment in that. So I don't really have a whole lot of comments about the remainder of the film. It's more so about Bruce's character in and of itself. It does say a lot about him. Like we mentioned, that he does try and control the Hulk. I am a person who suffers with PTSD, and I very much so believe that Bruce Banner is suffering with PTSD. I mean, of course, the Hulk isn't really, because as we discussed, he's not really an emotional or intelligent or emotionally intelligent character.
Well, I don't know if I would say he's not emotional. I mean,
he has anger.
He does still care for Betty, Elizabeth, whatever.
It's also
Miss
implied,
Ross.
it's also kind of implied that whenever he feels like she's in danger, he gets more strength. Whenever somebody he cares about is in danger, he becomes stronger, which can easily be explained away as, if I am super angry because someone just broke into my house and I'm hyped up on adrenaline, I'm going to be a lot stronger than if I just try to, punch somebody in the face right now. I'm calm, I'm relaxed.
Which is why I feel like in the MCU, it was wrong for them to, I don't think they ever directly stated, but it is implied a lot, that it's still anger that sets off the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they should have tweaked that a little bit and just say any extreme emotion that sets him off.
Also, he almost hulked out when they almost had sex.
Yeah.
So, that being said, it's not inherently the anger, it's the accelerated heart rate paired with a strong emotion.
Yeah. There's also, they hint at it in a deleted scene in here, and they do say it in Avengers, is that there's a moment when Bruce Banner tried to kill himself, but in the time between the bullet traveling through the barrel, he transformed into the Hulk and was therefore bulletproof, and it didn't work.
Which is kind of implied that he was fearful, and that's why he hulked out.
So again, I feel like it should have definitely been an extreme emotion instead of just saying anger. So.
And they definitely could have thrown the heart rate in there thing very,
I actually
very
really dislike the stupid heart rate thing that they have in there.
I like it. I like
it. I think it's dumb.
If
I were to have 3 critiques of the film, it would be the heart rate, Liv Tyler has no chemistry, and the end credit scene should have stayed at the end credits. So really quick, for those of you guys who don't know or maybe didn't see this in theaters, because this was before, comic book movies are huge, that scene where Tony Stark talks to General Ross was originally at the very end of the credits, just like everything else. But when they released it on home video, they added that to be the last scene of the film before the credits. So it kind of, there's like this weird contrast of at the very end between Hulk meditating and transforming into the Hulk to a cut to black, and it kind of like also fades into that next scene, which was the end credit scene. Yeah. So it's just, it kind of felt off.
Yeah, it did. It definitely didn't feel like it was part of the story, and it was just like, where is this coming from? What's happening here? Yeah. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but in what was originally supposed to be an end credit scene, I believe it's implied that General Ross is drinking the same soda that he had been originally making.
Actually, no. It's a cocktail called the Incredible Hulk. It's an
really?
Incredible Hulk, yeah.
Huh. I just noticed it was a green-looking soda, so in a Scotch cup, but that's okay.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't the soda that he was. It wasn't the soda from the factory that Bruce Banner was working at in the beginning of the film. It's a actual cocktail called.
Good to know.
The Incredible Hulk cocktail. So.
I'm not 21. I know no alcoholic beverages whatsoever.
Well, I found that one off of IMDb, so it's okay.
The little quirk things about the movie.
The trivia.
Yeah, that, not quirks. I do want to say that I really appreciate the relationship that they build between General Ross and Betty Elizabeth. That's just what I'm going to call her from now on, just so you know. It's very much so implied that they do not have a good relationship, that she much more so had a good relationship with her mom. She wears her mom's necklace throughout the movie. But also, she calls him the General. Can you get the General come out here? Then she finally says Dad, and that kind of breaks through his stoic walls a little bit. He also sends his men to take care of her after she almost died, which, if that were my child, I would be running towards her before, all of that even happened, because she's out there about to get killed. Any true good parent would have run out there to try and save their child, not just wait and see what the Hulk does.
Are you talking about the airship thing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in his defense, he does try to call it off, but he forgets how radios work.
Yeah.
Because he calls in the airstrike on the radio, and then when he sees his daughter is out there, he just starts yelling,
Stop, don't go!
He starts yelling, call off the airstrike, but he's not using his radio. He has a radio in his hand, but he's not using it. He's just running on and saying, call off the airstrike, call off the air. And it's just like...
Which, if you're running and you're yelling, it's not going to be picked up by the radio. It's going to hear wind. So,
Yeah, so it was just...
Even if he was trying to use the radio, it wasn't working. Reversing back to my previous comment about the PTSD, they do give Banner flashbacks. They give him nightmares. They give him the hyper-awareness that commonly comes with PT, something I've struggled with, the slight paranoia in some instances, and the isolation. Those are all huge common traits of someone with PTSD. I have PTSD. I know this. My favorite one where they did a flashback kind of tie-in with the PTSD was actually when he was in the shower.
Yeah.
And so he looks up at the shower, you get a shot of the shower head with the water coming out, and then all of a sudden it's the revolving gun with the bullets firing. And I absolutely love that. That was beautifully done. I also really think that giving him that PTSD to do those flashbacks was a beautiful, beautiful way to make that happen and make it happen well. It definitely didn't feel jarring and felt very natural. Something that other movies could take a lesson from. And again, as someone who suffers with PTSD, doing that was very much so appreciated. It's definitely not thrown in your face that, oh, hey, Bruce Banner has PTSD. But at the same time, this movie did come out when having PTSD for reasons that weren't military was not a common knowledge thing. My grandfather has actually said that I can't have PTSD because I wasn't in a wartime combat. So, I mean, that's a very common disbelief, and it's very much so easy to write off the fact that they never mentioned it in any way, shape, or form as, this wasn't the time when having PTSD through other causes was common or well accepted either. So,
I mean, I feel like it's still kind of not common because, I mean, you tell people that you have PTSD and automatically they ask if you were in the
were you
military.
in the military? No, I wasn't. I was in
And
a
then they
bad
get confused.
situation.
And then it's just like, yeah, so...
Unfortunately, that's a reality. If you have PTSD and care to share your story, put it in the comments below. I will absolutely respond to you. People with PTSD, for any reason, definitely reach out. Try and get help because it is out there. Just a little thing here. I know this isn't Incredible Hulk or Endgame related at all, but do reach out. Do get that help. It is out there, and as someone who has a family who doesn't believe that I can have PTSD because of the situations that I was in, you can get that help. Please reach out to someone. Get that help. Go to therapy. It does help eventually.
Kind of good friend. Listen, I mean, that's good. I don't know what happened with us, but let's try to get back on track here if you don't mind.
Anyway,
It's a little too somber for me.
Going back to the Incredible Hulk, I do love the movie. How would you rank the movie?
Oh, that's what I forgot. I didn't like the movie. Honestly, a 5 or 6.
I would probably put it at about a 5 as well. Just so you know, we do put how we rank our movies down below in the description, so check that out.
Yeah, so there you'll see what a 5 on our scale means.
And if you're feeling up for it, rank the movie on your own down below. Use our scale. Let us know what you thought of it. Absolutely, if you haven't seen this movie, check it out. Again, don't read book 7 before reading books 1 through 6.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is one of those ones that you could skip over because with the exception of General Ross, nothing from this movie comes back.
But
at all.
I love this Hulk so much more than I love the Hulk that comes out later. So, watch this movie, if nothing else, just for that, simply because it's a very different take on the Hulk. Not hugely, drastically different, because it is still in the same continuity.
I mean, it's still Hulk.
It is still Hulk, but I liked this Hulk better than the one we have now. So, check it out, if nothing else, just for the Edward Norton Hulk. Do it, please. I will love you. And let us know what you think of the movie, of course. Yeah, don't just tell us what you would rank it. Tell us what you liked.
Yeah, that's one thing that kind of bothers me when YouTubers do the whole, hey, if you like us, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. But I mean, I do like reading comments. And that does help the channel grow. So if you like us, or if you want to comment, if you even want to complain and say, hey, you shouldn't dislike the movie because of this, or hey, I thought you guys were stupid because of this, then just comment it. I'll either rebuttal or just ignore you, depending on.
Yeah, and let us know what you think about all this up here. This is brand new. You haven't seen it in a video yet. Let us know what you think. These are actually right here above me. They're lenticular covers. So let us know what you think of it. If you have any critiques for our channel as a whole, let us know those as well down below.
Except for that one, kind of email us. Our email is in the about section of our channel.
Yeah.
So if you have more of a critique or a comment or something like that about us in particular, email would be the much better way to do that.
I'm a lot more likely to respond that way. I check email literally like every hour of the day because I am in college, so I will definitely see it and we'll get back to you pretty quickly. And we will see you next time with
Thor.
We're
going to skip Iron Man 2.
We will come back to it though, we promise. And until next time, enjoy the bad, enjoy the good, and especially, as always, enjoy the geeky.